You're listening to Tell This Story. I'm Doug White, a veteran, retired law enforcement officer, and the author of Hiding in Plain Sight. This is a platform for those who serve in our families to share their experiences and help one another grow. This isn't therapy. It's truth, the tactics, and a way forward. It's an opportunity to become stronger than before, together. This episode is fueled by Polestar Coffee, veteran-owned and operated craft roasted coffee for people who live on the X. Use code THISSTORY at checkout for 10% off your order. Now let's get to work. Welcome to Tell This Story. Most agencies have resources and some people still don't use them. And that gap, the gap between it exists and I'll actually raise my hand, that's where people get hurt. Welcome back to Tell This Story, where veterans, first responders, and their families come to get real about the cost of service and the way forward. Today I'm joined by my guest, Greg Grogan. Greg is president and co-founder of the Overwatch Collective. And what I think is so great about Greg's work, it's not just awareness, it's delivery. The Overwatch Collective is an organization built to remove friction, fast access, privacy, vetted care, and funding, so cost isn't the excuse. This is what support looks like when it's built like an ops plan. In this conversation, Greg and I are going to break down what actually works, how people get connected, what confidential really means in practice, how leaders can reduce stigma without lowering standards, and what you can do today if you're the one struggling or you're trying to help someone you love. So, lean in and welcome to Tell This Story. Greg, how you doing today, buddy? Yeah, it is, man. I said, how you doing today, buddy? I was like, this is kind of stupid. This is so performative because we've already spoken today. Anyway, buddy, what's going on?
Not much. Wife and I are just prepping to move. We just bought a new house in Louisiana. So on top of military reserves, working patrol graveyard, trying to get all of this stuff in boxes and move about 20 minutes away. So it's full-time thing on top of full-time job, on top of talk and everything. So busy.
Yeah, no, I'd say so. Well, you know what? I think the majority of the people who are listening to us know about the Overwatch Collective, but probably know less about you. Why don't you tell us about yourself, your background, and why in particular you decided to do what you're doing now, in addition to all the other stuff?
Yeah. So born and raised in San Mateo County, California, into a big military first responder family. So third generation military, fourth generation law enforcement. Brother became a firefighter. He was a smart one out of the group. He's a firefighter in Southern California. So dinners are always fun. The jokes going around, every cop wants to be a firefighter. And then, became a police cadet at the age of 16 for about 2 years. So I was doing a bunch of ride-alongs, working details, thought I was super cool in the blue uniform with a whistle, doing traffic control, but started going on ride-alongs at like 13. And all I want to do was go on the freeway, chase high rollers and do Mach 3 with your hair on fire and then turn back around, go southbound on Interstate 280 and catch another one. That was it. And I just wanted the need for speed and the adrenaline. Joined the United States Marine Corps at the age of 18, a reserve contract with an infantry unit, Battalion 23rd Marines in San Bruno, California. 6-year reserve contract. Towards the end of the 6 years, we didn't do anything, no deployments whatsoever. And then as I was preparing to get out, they're like, hey, there's a unit deployment program coming up for Japan. So no combat related anything. We were on standby for some stuff, but really perfected how much soy sauce to get with the sushi and how much sake to drink. And so it was a good deployment. Got back, got out, took a year off, joined the Coast Guard, been in the Coast Guard for like 5.5 years now. Was a cop in Daly City, California, one city south of San Francisco for 10 years. Was a patrol dude, motor officer, SWAT dude, operator or drone operator. Major accident investigation team, honor guard, first aid CPR, range instructor. I was way too busy, couldn't even focus on time for myself. And then, last year left and came to Louisiana. So now I work for the Lafayette Police Department out in Louisiana, working patrol graveyard before I can get back on the motorcycle out here. Happily married, my beautiful wife, Robin. We got 2 dogs. She's one of the most culturally competent therapists that we have out here in the state of Louisiana and probably across the country. Her and Brooke are really good friends. Season 10, episode 3, we just recorded. So she helps.
Great episode, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for listening. So we have a great relationship. We have so much fun together. She helps me out with the Overwatch Collective quite a bit, which is amazing. And then, get into this new house and prepare for a family. So that's the quick and dirty.
So basically what you're saying is right now you're slowing down.
Actually, you know what? Leaving California to come here, and Robin's even said it. She's like, you feel so much lighter because I had so much on my plate. I had a gym in my garage and I was not working out as much as I should have, right? Like everybody thinks like, oh, if you have a gym in your garage, you can work out all the time.
They
Well, the
won't.
podcast table, the merchandise, everything was in the garage. So I'd be so distracted and my brain would be like, okay, I need to get this done. So then in between sets, I would go do XYZ. That would be 5 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, I lost the workout. So here, like I have a good workout routine. I'm only doing patrol the days that I have off. And like my mental and physical health has improved quite a bit. So yeah.
They got to have those boundaries, man, like we spoke about earlier.
Mhm.
But you know, I want to talk about the Overwatch Collective, and um, every agency, well, a lot of the agencies, they say they have resources, and but people still don't use them, or as many people as could be using them are not using them. What did you see in your own experience, or just watching others that made you say, "Hey, we need to build something different here. We need to make this easier for folks to get to."
Yeah, I think it's a combined experience between the military and the first responder community. Obviously, Doug, you can relate Air Force and police, same as me, military and police. And you see for the military side, it's like the annual suicide prevention classes where you're sitting at the computer doing your government mandated training and you're click, 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 click,
Yeah,
click, just trying to get it done. And then for the police department, fire department, like I generally do think the stigma is getting reduced. I think our younger generation is using these resources more. It's becoming more normalized, which is fantastic. And I love to see it because I know your time, like my dad's time, there was none of this other nonprofit organizations that are funding you to go to therapy with a legit therapist. Like that wasn't really a thing. So it's so cool to see people now that have noticed those gaps and then are doing their own work to try to fill those. So for us, it was exactly that. It was me and Jesse, the other co-founder. We both have lost friends to suicide and have seen the critical incident debriefs and seeing people that are affected that something's going on, but hey, you're on shift in 30 minutes. So you got to go 10-8, get your ass in the patrol car
hmm
and you're going to the street, not offering resources, kind of just like a check in the box. And I mean, they can only do so much. And like some of these agencies now are contracting therapists, which is like sounds all good and dandy, but they just don't have the experience or the knowledge to know exactly who they're contracting. So we've seen it quite a bit where therapists are getting contracted with departments and then they're reaching out on Facebook groups like, I just got contracted with this department. What training should I do? Or what should I? And it's like they're trying to do their part. They're trying to do a good thing with contracting a therapist.
yeah.
They don't understand that wheelhouse of the therapist, what's culturally competent, and who to do or who to contract. So that's kind of where we came into play and we were like, hey, we know this community. We've gone on deployments. We've lost friends to suicide. We've pretty much seen it all other than combat. We can come up with a process to be able to.
Well, first of all, I want to back up a little bit and say it. I know you didn't mean to, but it stung a little bit when you said like my time and your dad's time. That kind of hurt.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Stings, man.
I'm just jealous
Damn.
because you guys are both retired,
Well, man, look, there's a whole host of stuff that comes along with retirement.
Mm.
The like we talked about earlier when we were with Eric in the gym today, and I realized again, I'm 52. I don't heal the way that I used to. It's harder to keep the weight off. It's harder to take the weight off once it's come back on. You're not young anymore. So you've got that to deal with, along with what am I going to be when I grow up? The loss of tribe, focus, mission, all of the things that go along with that. So being retired just means you have more time to work on those things or to stew in those things, if things go horribly wrong. But you said that these conversations are being more normalized and people are becoming more aware of them. Do you believe that it's also because this younger generation is more emotionally intelligent, or at least have been told by their parents it's okay not to be okay, and your feelings are valid, and let's talk about this instead of just the suck it up and drive on?
Yeah, I think it's people in the organizations that are finally starting to realize, okay, more needs to be done because how many more suicides can we take? Um,
Mhm.
and it really sucks when you have a suicide and then there's not even like any reactionary steps in order to prevent another one. And I think time after time, agencies have seen that, and it's like, okay, something needs to be done. I do think one of the benefits of social media is organizations and people like you
Mhm.
and Eric and me talking about this and going out into the public to do trainings, whether it's at the academy level or doing the annual or biannual trainings or sending leadership within these departments to conferences to go learn about what's out there. Then they bring it back to organizations and be like, we're behind the ball. We need to be working on a peer support team, or we need to have a culturally competent therapist with the department, a therapy dog, etc.
I've seen some of those things being done, and I've seen leadership, people in positional authority going to conferences and coming back with all of these good ideas, and they miss the mark. So it'll be a slogan, a poster, something on the intranet, the departmental intranet, a colorful bracelet that goes along with it, or somebody wanted a dog, so we're going to call it a therapy dog, but it bites people. I think that they want to do well. They're probably just I don't know, man. I don't know if it's they don't prioritize it, or they are looking for a quick, easy fix. But oftentimes, I think that. And again, there are agencies out there and entire regions that are doing great work, but there's still some folks that are missing the mark. Is that the gap that you guys are trying to stand in? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you are there. I mean, goodness, your numbers are impressive. I was looking over them again. You guys keep those pretty up to date regularly.
Yeah, we update them every Sunday, and it's so cool to see the numbers increase, right? Like literally today, we had 2 people apply for financial assistance, both first responders, and um, I mean now we got such a great system. I'll talk about it later, but it's we were able to respond to both these people in less than 30 minutes and send them a personal email, and it's not like some automated email like, "Hey, this is the Overwatch Collective. We'll get back to you in less than 72 hours." Like, we actually have a designated member now, so when somebody reaches out for financial assistance, she gets a notification on her phone. So then it goes to our group chat within 30 minutes to an hour.
That's
In
awesome.
today's case, it was less than that, and then able to send an email back to them and get more info. One needed a lot more info, and one just needed like a little bit of info for us to be able to approve them. So those have been fired off. Now we're just waiting for responses from them. But yeah.
Let's I'm going to back up. I got ahead of myself just talking with you because I know the answers to this, and I forget that people listening may not. So you guys saw the gap, that there was a need for
Yes. Yeah.
cultural competent counseling, and it needed to be cost effective. Some places you guys could help. So you
Yeah.
saw that gap. Let's go into the mechanics of how you close that, because me looking at the structure that you have now, looking at it's like, my God, this is incredible. How did one person, 2 people, 10 people decide to do this? And of course, I know that it started with simple action and then grew into this thing. But how did you guys do this? What was it, and what is it now?
Yeah, so I'll start with the gap. We saw people in the community that wanted to go through the peer support team or the employment assistant program, them getting connected to a therapist, whether it be a week or two, whatever the case may be, but he or she would go to a Kaiser Blue Shield, whatever therapist, whatever the insurance is, right? Your provider, and they would have a shitty experience because they would have to explain like what life was like as a police officer. Hey, when I'm a firefighter, I work 48 on, 72 off, 48 on, whatever the case may be. And it's like a lot of the people would, number one, like not even really feel comfortable opening up about their trauma that they need to work on because it's like, oh, they don't really get what I go through. Like, you waste a whole 30 minutes out of a 60-minute session explaining your schedule. And then number two, when they do open up, it's like the therapist sitting across from them, whether it be in person or virtual, is like, oh shit, like that's what you see? Like that's what you experience? Like I couldn't imagine that. And sometimes like stressing out the therapist, and it's like no knock to your normal therapist out there, right? Like we appreciate you and thank you for what you do. But I mean, Doug, our military and first responder community requires well trained, trauma informed, trauma trained therapists that you could sit across the table from them and be like, hey, I went on this SIDS death or I went on this terrible suicide and this is what I saw. And it's like, okay, tell me more, tell me more. Like, I'll take all this in because a lot of the therapists that we have that work on trauma, they have their own therapists to be able
Mhm.
to unload that stuff too. So we recognized that gap. And at first we were like, hey, let's start a podcast. And that was June of 2021. And we had no idea what we were doing. We set up a poker table with camo netting that was half broken on the inside that like if somebody put their coffee mug down too hard, Doug, it was gonna fall and collapse. So we were just gonna sit there laughing. Like we had no idea what we were doing, but we had we had everybody in the community come on. So we had a service member come on, combat veteran. We had a police officer, firefighter, dispatcher, deputy coroner, and we tried to get everybody within the community. And we were like, tell us more about your job. Tell us more about the trauma. What's it like getting resources for you? And we saw a common theme, and it was like, whoa, this is deeper than what we thought. Like, this is worse than we thought. So then we were like, hey, what can we do? And we started receiving some donations, which was great. And the first donation was to drink better beer. We were drinking Trulies at the time while we were recording, and they were like, get you some manly beer at least, like have some fun with it. And then we decided to turn it into a C3 nonprofit with the intent to fund our community to attend therapy with culturally competent therapists outside of the employment assistance program, outside the VA. And when you work with a culturally competent, well-trained therapist, it's not the $75 for an hour that your department will probably pay for. It's the 160 to 180
Yeah.
an hour that we need. But our cops and firefighters, number one, can't afford that. And number two, they're probably buying a new Trigicon RMR instead of actually going to a therapy session, you know? So that's where it all started.
Yeah. Speaking of your pending garage sale, if you have any of those extra laying around, let me know.
Well, we have a few right next to me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was it.
We'll,
So we're like, hey,
we'll get that out online.
yeah, so we go to ebay.com/Greg shit. So yeah, we were like, okay, we know this is a problem, right? We know no first responder service member is going to proactively look for a therapist just in the event that he or she needs one, right? Like you usually see our community looking for a therapist or Googling therapist near me when times are really bad. And then our community now understands like cultural competency a little bit, but before, like, no cop or firefighter is going to know what to look for in a therapist that's a good fit for them. So yeah, so that's kind of how it started.
You know, it's funny that on my own experience with that, I guess my first step into counseling was with a marriage counselor. And I went with Michelle and we sat there, and the counselor, she was great. And, you know, I've talked about the story before and all that, but at the very end of that, she posed her questions to me, and she asked how I was sleeping, how's, you know, my mood, and, you know, am I low? Am I flat? You know, all the things. And she told us that, you know, there wasn't anything she could do as far as marriage counseling. She said, you know, I can offer you some books to read and some literature and, you know, resources. But Doug, have you thought about finding somebody that specializes in PTS? I'm like, whoa. Yeah, let's not throw out labels here, you know, person from EAP. But she was great because she realized, you know, that the issue in the relationship was me, and the things that I had not answered to. And she recommended that I go to a colleague of hers that does specialize in veterans trauma, and also recommended that I get into the VA and start that pipeline. And it was remarkable because when she said that, I was like, wait a second, I've got a buddy who used to work at the sheriff's office. He's retired now, got his PsyD and all that stuff, and has his own practice. He knows me from back in the day when I was a rookie and everything else. So I started seeing him, and it was expensive. And there's a local charity here in Central Florida called the Camaraderie Foundation. And you basically submit to them your paperwork and ask for a grant, and they pay for it. And I will say this, were it not for the Camaraderie Foundation or any foundation out there that could help subsidize that level of culturally competent care, it was not sustainable. It was absolutely not sustainable. You know, you're talking $150 an hour to $300 an hour.
Yep.
And, you know, you get into how, you know, they're helping people. How can they charge that? Well, because they had to go to 110 years of schooling and get certifications and put themselves through the ringer. And you're also compensating them for taking the load off of us. It's well earned. And honestly, I think it's kind of a bargain, even at that price, for what it is that they do. So I will say that for me, therapy outside of EAP was a non-starter had it not been for an organization that was able to take on that burden for me. So, you know, with the Overwatch Collective, how do the mechanics work? You know, walk me through. Like, I'm brand new, somebody raises their hand. What happens next, man? What step do I take? I see your cool logo. I hear great things. Fresh haircut on a podcast. I'm like, okay, these are the people that are going to take care of me. How do I get started with you guys?
Yeah. So we trust me, we know this community is not going to go through so much paperwork, through all this research to find somebody, right? For a majority of the time, when you finally say like, okay, I'm going to reach out, if you hit a barrier in a lot of people's head, that's like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah. This is not meant to be.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we
Yeah.
mentioned Travis Grobel earlier with My Arena. And like when he knew that he had a problem, his first therapy session, he parked in the parking lot and he about faced and drove away. Right. So
Been there. Yeah.
our community will, I mean, we're like the heroes. We love to go in and fight, active shooter, send me, grab the rifle, one in the chamber, send it, right? I'm going. But God forbid, go to walk into a therapy session knowing that you have a bunch of shit to unload. You're gonna be scared. So when you find like
Mhm.
a reason for you to back out, unfortunately, you're gonna take it a majority of the time. So for us, we were like, we need to make this as super simple as possible, right? Therapy for dummies, like those books that they have, right? Like, so we make it super easy. So you go to the overwatchcollective.com and you can click on the tab therapist at the top. And what that'll do, once you click on the therapist tab, it'll show up every state that we have contracted therapists in. So as of now, we're waiting on Hawaii. But other than that, we cover 49 states. So you click on Florida, you click on Louisiana, boom, here comes a list of our culturally competent contracted therapists. You see a photo of them, their name, a bio, email address, and if I do a podcast with them, there's a podcast linked to their profile. So, like for example, Louisiana, you go and there's 5. You can take a day or two and you could be like, all right, let me scroll through this list, right? Here's a photo. Okay, a guy, girl, do I have a preference? Read their bio, see what they're trained on, see their experience. Go look at their Instagram, see their vibe. Go listen to a podcast, which they're like up on YouTube. You can listen to like if they're jokesters, if their vibe is kind of weird, right? And then you can take a day or two and be like, all right, like I want to work with Doug. Cool. You pick Doug as your preferred therapist. You go to our financial assistance tab, you click apply for help, and you fill out a quick and simple form. It says, hey, our criteria is active or retired first responder, military that wants to work on job related trauma and needs financial assistance, which you got to explain in a little paragraph. And then we also cover therapy for spouses, significant others who've lost a service member to, or a first responder to suicide or killed in the line of duty. You click the I acknowledge button, you click the box saying your military, first responder, spouse, preferred therapist, Doug White. And then under that, you say, hey, my name's Greg Grogan. This is the reason why I'm reaching out. I went on a terrible call for service last week. Over the course of 10 years, I've experienced vehicle fatality after vehicle fatality. I've been traumatized. I've seen this. Like, it's finally time for me to work on this. Being in the state of California is everything super expensive. I've tried to go through my EAP. The therapist was terrible. Now I'm having to pay $180 out of pocket. I'm working overtime just to pay my $5,000
Mhm.
mortgage in the Bay Area, which I can't afford. Gas is $15 a gallon. I want to work with Doug. I'm finally ready to work on myself. Hit submit. And then that's where it comes to us. We get back to you. I mean, today was less than 30 minutes. We were able to get back to the people. And then it's either, hey, you're approved. We'll connect you to Doug right away. Once you sign our contract and our waiver, you're good to schedule with Doug your first session whenever you want. And sometimes it depends on how quickly people can get the waiver signed and returned back to us because we need that signed waiver before he or she can schedule their first session with the therapist. But we try to make it super simple. And then our community, like no knock to them, but they still provide summary and they're not reading the description of the criteria, but they're clicking the box and it's like, hey, I get it. You missed over this part, but we need more info from you before we can approve you for therapy.
So it's a pretty quick process then. I mean, it's direct, and not only are we looking at sources that have been vetted by your organization, but we have an opportunity to go in there and vet them ourselves. And I looked at Florida earlier on your website, and the website is just packed full of resources. It's tabbed. Everything is great. And there are, I want to say 5 or 6 at least in Florida. And just like you said, there's a complete bio, the pictures, their socials attached to it, and the podcast episodes. So that's incredible. And this is all confidential. It goes to you guys, and that's
Yep.
it. And it's not recorded
Correct.
anywhere as far as, well, I mean, for your record keeping, maybe, but it doesn't go back to their agencies or their medical insurance or anything.
Yeah, correct. So it's all confidential, and our goal, and this may take a little while, but it's to have somewhere around 3 to 5 contracted therapists in every single state and a podcast attached to every single one of them. So no matter what state the veteran or first responder's in, he or she can be like, all right, let me take a day or two, pick which therapist. So then that first time that they're getting connected to a therapist is as much of a success as possible. So they don't walk into therapy or hop on virtually and be like, ooh, like this
Yeah.
is who I'm seeing, about face, I'm out.
Oh, no, the podcast is like, well, that's an interview in itself for, that you're putting out there, but it's like a
Yeah,
test drive. So no,
exactly.
it's really cool. And specifically episode 3 that we were just talking about, I finished that on my way back from the gym today. Hey man, I got to tell you, I don't know that I would survive Hobbit or Brooke because, bro, they're down with it. You got an hour. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you an hour, and it's business, and I'm not gonna hold your hand through this, but we're gonna get through it. I mean, so
Hmm.
it's impressive people and an impressive thing that you guys are doing. But now we talked earlier when we were speaking with Eric, and I want to use this term because I actually heard it was either Robin or Brooke that said it this morning on episode 3, my ick. And I was like, that's so funny. I was like, I'm going
Yeah.
to use that. I'm going to fit that in somehow today. But my ick is the price point because now I know first responders, they make a good living depending on where you're at. You may be making a good salary, but if you got a $5,000 mortgage because you have to live in that city, everything's relative. $150 an hour and having to work overtime. If I've got to come out of pocket $150 that I wasn't expecting, that means my kids don't get new school shoes in August. No, you're carrying the same backpack as last year unless I pick up an overtime job.
Yeah.
So those things get expensive really, really quick. And, I know what that feels like and it sucks. So let's talk money for a second. Cost is a barrier a lot for organizations. That's why they hit the easy button and say EAP contracted for whatever dollar amount they have. So how did you design the financial assistant model that helps stay viable for your organization and also to be able to help as many people as you can?
Yeah, and so very good question, and we learned over time, right? Because like I said, in the beginning we were like, this is what we want to do. We know we can help, but how do we exactly do it, right? Like looking at two infantry Marines that turn coasties and one cop that just knows how to write speeding tickets. Like we're like, all right, what the hell do we do here? So at first, in August of 2022, that's when we became a 501(c)(3), and we're like, hey, the money that we have raised, I think at the time it was like $1,000. We were like, how do we start this? How do we contract a therapist? How do we start paying? So we came up with a tiered system, and it was 100% of the cost for the first 3 sessions, 60% of the cost we covered for the next 5, 50% for the next 5, and so on. And at that point, we didn't have our criteria. Now it was just, if you're a first responder or service member and need therapy, reach out to us. So it was drinking too much. It was relationship problems. We were accepting everybody, right? And we're like, oh, let's help everybody get the numbers up. And then unfortunately, we had some people that kind of like took advantage of the system a little bit. We realized that we needed a criteria
Mhm.
because of some unfortunate situations. So that's when we kind of stricten our criteria. But essentially, every fiscal year, we look at our budget, what we have in the bank, and we budget out how much we have for therapy, now how much we have for retreats, which I'll touch on in a little bit, and then also like the website, the podcast, the nonprofit fees, all this other stuff that goes into it, right? Traveling. And then we're able to see exactly how much we can allot for therapy that year and retreats. So it kind of depends every year how much we're able to allot to therapy and retreats.
I think that's amazing too because one, it helps people get over the first barrier to getting into help, and then the cost share. That's incredible, man. So it teaches you to get on your own feet. Hey, this is not a forever thing. This is
Yeah.
a stabilization thing to where you can find something for yourself to take the edge off. I think that's great. So you guys have covered access, privacy, funding. You have an app too.
We do have an app. Yeah.
So
Yeah, we have an app. So about a year ago, we got contacted by this gentleman, and originally it was supposed to be for alcohol addiction users, recovery, et cetera. And they were looking for a nonprofit to kind of take the face of the app. So then they kind of helped us gear it towards what we wanted. Podcasts on there that we add. So we got to get you on there. But some of our therapists are on there. We have a social media platform. You can click incognito mode so you can post or comment on the social media thing as Doug White or at Anonymous. There's audio rooms, which is similar to podcasts on there. So there's a bunch of resources on there. We're not as active. I'm actually looking for somebody to either paid or volunteer their time to kind of take over the work that the app requires. Cause I mean, I just figured out how to run a nonprofit. Now you're telling me I have to learn how to run an app. I'm like, I can't can't figure this out, nor do I have the time. But yeah, it's free to download. So it's for the Apple users and the Android users that ruin every single group text. What we say, it's all the green messages. So go on there, check it out. And there's some good, yay, there you are. You're one of them.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. So it's on there. It's nothing super crazy, not super active on it, but we definitely have an app for some resources.
No, it's cool because it prevents people from being isolated and dark. I mean, there's whatever excuse they come up with, you guys have met the answer to it, which is cool. It's a very cop and military proof thing to do. Yeah, well, I can't. Okay, well, we got that. We got you covered there.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, we got you covered there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people will know who I am if I post. Yeah, not in incognito mode. So you pretty much got them covered. You know what? I want to transition this into leadership, because this is where culture either supports the mission or just quietly kills it. From your seat, in your experience, whether it's from the military, being a police officer in different jurisdictions, or even in the nonprofit space. But from your vantage point, what do you think leaders misunderstand about stigma and help seeking in our communities?
That's a very good question. What do they misunderstand? I think it's how everybody is different. Not everybody's the same person, and people can be affected by different things,
Mhm.
right? So think about military, you join at 18, police officer, firefighter, 21. Greg Grogan knows Doug White starting at 21, and then you advance, do 5, 10 years, everything, right? So you think you know that person, and as a leader, you think you know your team well, but you also don't know what happened before the age of 18, before the age of 21 in some of their personal life, even after 18 or after 21. So I think one of the things that gets missed is the realization that, hey, everybody's different and people could be affected by different things, right? Something that could be a nonchalant call for service or a nonchalant mission or deployment for you could be a struggle for me. I think that's one of probably the big thing that I've seen that's kind of missed in leadership.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I saw, and I saw it while I was still working, and I see it now even more, that old supervisors, old school, would say, "Hey, don't bring your personal problems to work." Okay, well, who's at home telling you don't bring your work problems here? So it's what we see at work and what we experience at work, regardless of the discipline, EMS, dispatch, or whatever. That stuff's going to bleed into home because we're human beings. And I think for leadership to say that not to bring your personal stuff here, it shouldn't impact work. Well, that's wrong, because as you said, military at 18, first responder at 21 or 18, depending on what your discipline is. If you do 20, 25, 30 years in those disciplines, it's going to cover every big event in your life. Marriage, buying a house, moving halfway across the country, buying another house just to move 20 minutes away. Marriages, divorces, kids, losing a child, losing your parents. All of the big things that are going to happen in your life that will test your resilience and durability are happening as a human being. At the same time, you're being exposed to, trauma on the order of 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more than the average person living that same life is going to experience, just by virtue of your vocation.
Yep.
And to expect that those things are not going to bleed into one another, I think that's a leadership issue that they need to be aware that just because they're not paying you for that time, it doesn't mean that time doesn't exist.
Yeah, very good point.
What do you think is, for peer support as a leader, what do you think is probably one of the best things? Like, if you had a script, what would you say to normalize? What would you say to a supervisor? Hey, 30-second script. This is what you can say. Not going to make it weird or anything else like this, but to normalize what your personnel may be experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd focus on the outside resources. So you'd be like, hey, that our specialty is being a police officer. Obviously, you promoted into this position where you're probably in training and you got this peer support role passed down from your captain or your lieutenant. Now you're in charge of it. You're at the helm. You need to reach out to your police officers, whoever is big on mental health, has been through therapy, and get everybody's kind of opinion. And also get like, you can do like a survey monkey or something, see what your people want,
Mhm.
and then create it based off of that. And also look at where are the gaps, right? Like how many departments in our country focus on resources for our spouses and significant others? Not really that
Yeah.
much, right? So
No.
so I think there's a lot that like If you have a department of 75 police officers, hit up some of those police officers, the experienced ones, the ones that have been through traumas, the ones that have been through officer involved shootings, terrible incidents, people that have nonprofits like the outside, like they tapped into me at my old police department and like, what do you think we need? Do you have any resources? Like hit up your people and reach out to them and be like, what do you guys want to see? We can tailor this. It's for you and your families. So what do you need? What would you like to see? These are our limitations, but what would you like to see and how can I best suit you?
Or at least what hasn't worked.
Exactly. What hasn't worked? What has worked? What can we learn from? What have we done as an organization that you've seen in the past that needs to be done? Please raise your hand, submit it anonymously. What do you want to see so that in the event, or if or when, probably when you're involved in a critical incident, you know that you had a say in the process that you're going to go through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So that would be my take.
That's good advice, man. You know what? If somebody was listening right now and they're not okay, or they're feeling it somehow, some way, but they're still performing, nobody from the outside is seeing it, but they know something's off. What do you think some of the top signs are that they should not ignore?
Well, number one, like if you're out there, you're listening to this, and you know that you're struggling, whether you're having suicidal ideations, which is normal, or you have suicidal ideations with a plan attached to it. If you're just waiting for one more critical incident, your personal life, like you mentioned, Doug, is in the dumps at home, but you're going to work and you're working overtime to forget about everything going on at home. Like, realize that you're not alone. Like, I've literally seen 289 submissions to go through the Overwatch Collective to work on therapy. And a lot of the time this has been building up for years. I don't know where to go. I don't trust my peer support. I don't trust the employment assistance program. I'm literally next up line for sergeant. And if I reach out and say I need resources, I don't know what they're going to do. So they reach out, and like, I could tell you 289 people are just like you and have
I was
gotten
to say,
through
that's every story that I've ever heard.
100%.
Yeah.
So you're not alone. And like, we call it, like, our name comes from obviously Overwatch. Like anybody in the tactical community kind of knows, like, you're in an elevated position. You're looking out for your buddies on the ground, right? So the whole shoot, move, communicate, you're in an elevated position. You're suppress a fire, you eyes downrange, whatever, right? So they can move, shoot, move, communicate, all that fun stuff. You're looking out for your buddies. And then the collective it's a collective effort to normalize this. It's a collective effort to work with other people who are doing podcasts, people who have nonprofits that are doing amazing work for our community that have different niches, right? Like, we'll get you connected to one of our therapists with financial assistance provided while maintaining complete confidentiality. But maybe you need something with fitness or nutrition. Boom, come to us and we'll get you connected, right? Like, our VA and police departments, fire departments can only do so much. And I think we've kind of seen that, yes, it's getting better, but they're still not perfect at it. So tap into all these other resources that are able to steer you in the right direction to get your head straight. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all a family, right? Like, we all want to take care of each other. And I want every single first responder and service member to do 30 years, to do 25 years, 20 years in the military, whatever it may be, and like, enjoy your career. And then when it's time to get out, like you mentioned, a year and a half, start preparing you and your family for that transition out. Start preparing for the loss of identity. Start preparing for being away from the guys and gals and not going on these phone calls for service, the adrenaline dumps and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a big difference. I was going to say something, but you brought up so many points. I was going from what I was going to say to the next good point to the next good point, and I completely lost where I was going to go with that. But I do know what I was going to say. Take that first step. You don't need a 90-day plan to make the next step. You don't need to look at your problem and say, man, this is so big, it's going to take so long. I can't do all. Just take the first step. Raise your hand. Now, for the spouse, the partner, the teammate, anybody that's trying to help, what's the best thing for them, or the best way for them to bring this up without pushing the person away? I mean, because
Like,
that's
the first responder reaching out to the family member, or family member?
The family member reaching out to the first responder.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. My book, when I wrote it, spouses, okay, cops, we don't buy books. And I read Emotional Support for Law Enforcement by Dr. Gail Martin. I read it and was like, oh my God, I could have used this 7 years ago. And I look at Michelle and said, where was this 7 years ago? She said, I bought it 7 years ago. It's been sitting on the bookshelf because you said you don't need that.
Sounds about
I
right.
was like, okay, once again, you're smarter than I am. I should have listened. But, it was there, but that proved to me then and there that the spouses, the people who love us most, are actively looking for ways to help us and are gently nudging. And I thought about that with my own book. I was like, this is a lot of grit and a lot of growth in one place, and it almost seems adversarial if you were just to hand it to your spouse. So I wrote a card, and I actually print them out. And when I do book signings or whatever, I put those cards in there because I know it's going to go from the spouse to their responder. And it basically expresses very gently in there that this book is given to you by someone who loves you and only wants the best, so on and so forth, to soften that blow. Have you seen any of that? Like, hey, my wife told me or my husband told me I needed to come get help, or have you heard anybody's story about gently leading them to you?
Yeah, nothing like specifically comes to mind. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh, yeah, this person, blah, blah, blah. But definitely, I know it's a thing. I know we've seen it too, where a lot of the times, like your spouse, whether husband or wife, they know you best. They see you, they interact with you on the job. They talk to you on the phone, via text, whatever, but
Mhm.
also like your days off, when you're coming home, how your mood is. And I mean, you imagine you're with somebody for a year or 2 years, and he or she's a firefighter, police officer, EMT, paramedic, coming home, and you can tell if they've had a good day or a bad day. And you start seeing that enough, and you start seeing some of the signs. A lot of the times it's like it's starting to affect our relationship now. I could tell for the last year things have been tough. I see you're coming home, you're drinking, your patience with the kids has gone thin, where we've had spouses reach out to us and fill out our form on behalf of their husband.
Wow.
That actually does come to mind. We had one where it's like, hey, this is for my husband. He's a firefighter, but he doesn't want to fill this out. So I'm filling it out for him, and I'm hoping you could talk to him. So yeah, definitely seen it. And like for the spouses and significant others, like, I'm sorry that there are not enough resources out there for you provided by our department, right? Like your loved
Mhm.
one is strapping on a bulletproof vest to go out every day, or throwing on turnouts after laying in the nice comfy recliner. Whatever you want to call it is going out there, and it's like they're not really doing their best job at taking care of you, your needs, the signs, what to look out for your loved one as a first responder or service member. And that's another one of those gaps that kind of needs to be filled. And I know there are podcasts out there that are run by spouses of firefighters that talk about exactly this, like Kelly and Brittany with Wives on Fire podcast. That's exactly what they do. They talk about their husbands as a firefighter and what life as a spouse of a first responder is like. So there's definitely gaps from the departments, military, to the families, I think, right? Like when you do a yellow ribbon ceremony in the military prior to deployment, that should not be the only time that your family is being provided resources when you're deployed overseas, or. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like your time as a police officer in the military, like spouses, significant others, did they get resources, a brochure with podcasts, nonprofits, websites, books? Here's some signs to look out for of your first responder if he or she's struggling, like any of that?
No, and it was remarkable to me because in October of 19 is when I got to my critical point and got help.
Yep.
And it was remarkable because they put together a family academy, and it was, I want to say October 12th. Anyway, it was right around the time that I got critical. And I was like, man, this is fantastic. This is great. There was probably 20 couples there. There was a sergeant and his wife and myself and Michelle. We're the only two supervisors that went to the entire thing. I'm like, man, if we're going to support this, I think more supervisors should have been here. And I pulled the head of HR aside and said, hey, this is fantastic. This is needed. And I mean, I was emotional about it because it was so important to me because I was falling apart. And of course, nobody knew still. And this was a week prior to my parking lot moment. But that was the first of its kind. And I had been there for 22 years. And up until from that point in October of 19 to when I retired July of 23, it had not been repeated. So I think maybe on a district level or a squad level, people are taking care of each other. Like on 9/11, I got recalled to active duty and I was gone for 37 months. My squad made sure that if the yard needed to be mowed and I wasn't there, one of my buddies would come by and mow the grass. My buddy, Richard George, I actually gave me a picture of him in one of his undercover wigs the day I retired, and it sits here on my desk. But he mowed my grass. He took care of the house and took care of stuff, and he's one of my greatest friends. But that wasn't agency mandated. That was just good people watching out for each other. And I think the larger the organizations get, the harder it is to touch those points. But I think this information needs to be front loaded in the academies. I think there needs to be a spouse academy or a family academy. Maybe it's part of an orientation before these responders even start their academies. And it needs to be a support group that goes through. And like we spoke when we were talking with Eric earlier, there needs to be an out processing, not being handed a list of the shit you owe them, but making sure that you've got everything sorted out and you're ready to transition into this next chapter of your life. Anyway, that's enough of me monologuing on your time here, but
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, I have definitely been fortunate to Alameda County Sheriff's Office in Northern California. They do, and I'm sure there are other organizations out there that are doing it. So if you're listening to this and you're about to send me a nasty gram on Instagram saying my department does a family orientation in the academy, like I get it. I'm just saying a majority where they may not do it, and that's something that needs to be done for everybody. But the Alameda County Sheriff's Office in Northern California, they do it. Where mid academy, they have the family members, spouses, the children all come in, and they have the academy coordinator, and they have different people kind of present, and they do a PowerPoint, and they walk through what they're kind of going through, which I think is great. And I had the honor and privilege to actually be invited to go speak to them about like the mental health side of things and the transition of their loved one going from civilian to deputy sheriff, and then the resources we provide. But I always say one of my big things is backtrack 20 days, January 1, 2026, of every single first responder or service member when he or she goes to start the academy or starts basic training or boot camp, they get a day or two. They have prior Marines, prior airmen, prior firefighters come in and they're like, hey, know you're excited about doing the job, the adrenaline, jumping out of helicopters, all that fun stuff. Here's the actual shit that you're probably going to see. It affected me. Don't be like me. Here's a list of resources. Use them. You're not weak. You're not alone, etc. And then since that's a mandate, January 1, 2026, 25 years from now, every single first responder or service member is going to have that. In addition to helping out the family. So, I mean, I always think towards the suicide numbers, the divorce numbers and everything, that would probably decrease them, in my opinion. And that's something that I would like to see.
No, I agree. And that the drinking, all of the things that that some command staff would see as character issues. Now, let's not look at what's presenting. Let's look at what caused that. And we can turn off a lot of those switches with awareness in the academy. If anybody listening, if you wanted to send hate mail to Greg for saying that, do something constructive and actually send me the outline of what your region or your organization does at those academies. And I will blast it out all over the state of Florida and anybody in my contacts, because I think that's fantastic, man. And if it's working for you, I would love to know it's working.
Yep. Me too.
But, one last question before I ask where people can find you. This now prior Marine, current Coastie, married man, country traveler, nonprofit establisher, all of these things, man. What does strong mean to you now compared to when you started all this earlier in your career?
Strong. Right away, the first word that comes to mind is resilient. Resilient, awareness. Yeah, I'd say resilience and awareness. Like resilient to be strong physically and mentally for things, to be able to be like the provider for my wife and our two dogs, like throwing the ball for them. That's very important. And then also the awareness too, like obviously like the goal is to have a happy, healthy career, happy, healthy marriage. So be aware of what needs attention at that moment and then where your priorities are. Like for me, I love everything about the Overwatch Collective, right? Like this is my passion. I love this more than being a police officer, but God forbid, like Robin needed anything and I needed to step away from something, like I'm taking a pause on either one of these because that's my priority, So when I think of strong, those are the two things that come to mind.
That's awesome. Well, Greg, man, let's close this thing out. I know you've got stuff to do today. Where can everyone find you?
It's super simple. Type in the Overwatch Collective on Google, anything. The App Store, type in the Overwatch Collective, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, URL, theoverwatchcollective.com. It's pretty simple, I don't think you can miss that. Type in the Overwatch Collective on anywhere and you'll find us. Mostly active on Instagram. That's where I'm on there pretty much all the time. TikTok, I kind of just throw like random videos up and have it auto edit. I'm like, oh, that's a cool song. Send, upload. And I'm stuck at like 300 views every post, but I don't care about that. Like primarily focused on Instagram.
Yeah, you just need the one, buddy. And I will say for anybody looking to support the Overwatch Collective or donate, they have awesome swag. I think I've got probably 2 or 3 of my own podcasts where I'm wearing an Overwatch Collective t-shirt that you send me. The smaller one that you sent me is actually being worn by a sergeant out on the east side of the county.
Perfect.
And We've got at least 2 districts with Overwatch Collective pamphlets sitting there. I'm hoping they're gone by now, but yeah, visit overwatchcollective.com, get the swag, donate, help them out because they're doing great work. Greg, I appreciate you, buddy. Any parting shots? Any last words?
No, I appreciate you. I know this is a lot of work. I know the podcast, the nonprofit, everything's a lot of work. And I love all your posts, following you on social media, everything. And I think I could see it in you that it's also helping you by doing all this and talking with other people in the community. And I think this is one of the coolest things about the Overwatch Collective. Like, if it wasn't for this, I never would have gotten connected to Eric. I never would have gotten connected to you, to Travis Kerbal. So, like, the community and meeting good people that are just trying to do good for our community, like, it makes my heart happy. So, I look forward to one day meeting you in person and being able to take a photograph together and all that. So,
No, man, that'll be awesome. Eric got that privilege last April.
yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it was my privilege. It was so cool to meet him. But anyway, man, we'll see if we can't make that happen at some point. But I appreciate you coming on. Anybody listening, if you don't, or if you're not already aware of the Overwatch Collective, shame on you, because you should have been. He's been around for a long time. Get after it. All of the contact information can be found in the show notes below. And as always, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Tell This Story. Thank you for staying in the fight. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one person who needs it. Check out the show notes for our guest contact information and others. So follow Tell This Story on the platform of your choice. Hit like and subscribe. Every rating helps get our voices to the people who need it most. Get your copy of my book, Hiding in Plain Sight, The Truth About Trauma, Service, and the Way Forward. It's now available on Audible, and you can get it anywhere you get your books. Tap into more information about this platform or resources for vets, responders, and their families at DougWhiteOfficial.com. We'll see you next time.